Hello, everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One on One. Bobby Sanguinetti has packed a lot of accomplishments into his 30 years. He grew up playing hockey and was later drafted by the team he loved as a child, the New York Rangers, and played professionally for the Rangers in the National Hockey League. Bobby has played pro hockey all around the world, and this past winter, he represented the United States as a member of the U.S. Men's Olympic Hockey Team. Bobby Sanguinetti also became a father for the first time in this past year. And he'll tell you it was going to hockey games with his father that started his love for the sport.
It was amazing. Like I said, my father would take me on the train to the games, and just to be a part of the atmosphere there, and then to be able to play for that team for a few games was a really cool experience. And the draft day, I remember sitting there with my dad, and I expected to go a little bit earlier, so we were slipping, and he gave me a nudge. He said, "You're going to be a Ranger," and it was just a really cool experience.
Is there anything that beats Game 7 of a Stanley Cup, especially when your favorite team is there? Because they played Vancouver. You were there, Game 7. Yeah. And then you went to the parade afterwards. Yeah. As a kid who liked hockey, that had to be the best.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's, when you're a fan of a team like that and you can invest in it. And, I mean, just from watching the playoffs now, I don't really have a team that I'm rooting for, but to watch Vegas and teams like this that just have that following now, after a quick period of time, it's just shows how sports can rally some people together, and especially in New York City with the parade, it was pretty amazing.
What got you interested in hockey? Was it going to the Rangers game? Was your dad having season tickets? When did you first remember having an interest in it all?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. I think I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and he used to watch the games with me on TV, and once he felt I was old enough to go on the train and do all that, the whole trip, he took me with his buddies, and I was able to experience that. So I was joking with my wife. My son was watching it with me for the playoffs now, so I told him I used to sneak out when past bedtime and crawl behind the couch to watch the games, and so it's cool to be able to experience that with him as well.
Jackson's a little younger than you were now. I mean,
exactly.
He's probably just seeing things going back and forth on the screen.
Exactly. No,
your first team, I guess, was at age 7, right?
Yep.
Do you remember back to those days and getting on the ice that first time and playing team competitive hockey?
Yep. I remember. So I started skating at 4 and just kind of took some time to, develop my skills, I guess, with that before playing the game. So I actually got cut from my first team when I was 7 and ended up going somewhere else. But it was, I actually, after the Olympics, I had some people reach out that the coach there, Ed Moran, I played for growing up. He reached out and just said congratulations. And so you still kind of see some ties from the past.
And it must be, is hockey and junior hockey, those of us who didn't play it competitively, I played street hockey because I never learned how to skate. Yeah. We would set up, and literally on playgrounds, when I was growing up in Pennsylvania, we would put goals on either end of the playground because I have difficulty walking on 2 feet, much less skating, and we would run, and that was how we played hockey growing up. Yeah. Was it difficult to learn to you, or did you gravitate toward it, the skating and then all the tools?
I think it just starts with the passion, I think, is the main thing. It's the same thing as any sport. If you want to get better and you find little ways. I mean, I take a golf ball in the basement and go shoot it against the brick wall and try to stop it, and just little things that every day you try to develop and hone these skills in. So it's just whenever I could play, I would play. I have my buddies who I always give them credit when I can. We played same thing. We played street hockey a lot, they'd give me a hard time. And one guy would say he was Martin Brodeur, and I was Brian Leach growing up. So, but you just look back to those days, and it's all fun at that time. You don't think about it being a profession or something that you could do in the future. So just to develop that way was probably great for me.
Brian Leach, long time your idol. Yeah. Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
I didn't. I was, like I said, I was only in New York for a couple of years, and I think he was enjoying his retirement at that point. And he did reach out, make a phone call, and we were able to talk a little bit. So
that's nice.
That was really cool to be able to do that, and a little bit starstruck at the time. You lose your train of thought when you're talking to him and things you'd like to say just because you spent so much time watching him play. But to be able to let him know that I kind of developed my game by watching him, and just a little compliment for him.
How did your game develop, but you didn't play really like high school hockey? You took a different path, did you not? How did that all come about?
So I played minor hockey up until I was 13, and then basically had to decide where I was going to go from there. And I played 2 years at prep school away from home. So my parents packed me up and moved me away, and it was the best thing that I could have done as a young man and as an athlete. So I lived away for 2 years, and from there I went up to Canada to play, even further, where I lived with a family, and they kind of just looked after me for 4 years before turning pro.
Now, you up in the Northeast, there are a lot of schools that, I mean, let's face it, Boston and some of those other schools up that way that are hockey powerhouses.
Yeah.
Why go the way that you did and go to Canada? Why not, stay in the United States and maybe go to, Minnesota or some of those other powerhouses?
Yeah, no, that was actually my dream growing up, was to play college hockey, and I had the opportunity to do it. It just gets to a point where everything happens so fast. So I was like I said, I was a 15-year-old kid making that decision whether to play college or you lose your eligibility as soon as you play major junior in Canada. So at that time, you start hearing NHL teams talk about being an option for you, and there was a lot of nights where we sat down at the kitchen table and just drew up the pros and cons, and a lot of convincing of my mother to let me go play major junior. So it was just, at that point, like I said, the fastest way to get to the NHL for me was to play in major junior in Canada, and unfortunately not the college route, but it worked out so far. How
did that help you develop? Is it a different kind of training? Is it a different kind of theory? Not theory, but you know what I'm trying to say. A different way of approaching the game when you go that route versus a college hockey?
Yeah, it's obviously you have your schooling with college. That's the main one. You kind of give up your education when you go play major junior at that level. But college hockey is based around the weekend game, so you play Friday, Saturday, and so practices. Guys mature more physically. You're playing against older players. Whereas in junior, you start off at 16, you play against 19 and 20-year-olds that are the oldest. So, but it's more of a professional lifestyle when you're playing major junior. You're playing, 3 games a week, and the focus is on hockey rather than just kind of that long week of training and practice in college and then playing those 2 games.
So you really consider, could you loosely consider it like a minor leagues of hockey, really?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Obviously, you're younger at that age, but everybody's kind of doing the same thing. You're showing up for your games. You're playing 3 games a week, and you're practicing on your off days, and at the same time, you're still going to school. So it was kind of a full workload, but it still taught you how to be a professional and take care of your body, and which college does, but like you said, you have more time to take care of your body in college.
And when you went up there, was there ever a time that you can recall that you were like, maybe I'm in over my head, or a doubt, or did you really have to, you were there because you knew you were good enough? Or take me through your mindset. Again, you're 15, 16 years old, so it had to be difficult for a teenager, A, being away from home, and B, trying to learn something that you thought you really wanted to do the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think a little bit of the unknown is scary at times. You're moving with a family that you never met before, and you're 8 to 10 hours away from your parents. So it was a kind of a different experience. But looking back, like you said, made me a better pro, better athlete, and a better person, because you have to adapt to the situation, and you learn a lot from that. And I think for me, that year was the lockout year, so there's a lot of guys that could have been playing in the NHL that were playing in junior at that time, and there was a couple moments when they'd be coming down on me when you're like, this guy's the real deal at this point. I'm a 16-year-old kid. I didn't know where I fit in, and then as it started to develop and the year went on, and I realized that I belonged there, and just kind of more, like I said, a learning experience.
Who did you play against? Who do you remember?
Corey Perry was the big one. The London Knights, my first year, had David Bolin and Corey Perry and Rob Schremp and some big names that just kind of Dan Girardi, and I think they went on a 35-game win streak that set a record. So, but you just remember playing them and thinking, "Whoa, this is these guys are pretty good." So no, but it was a good experience though.
When did you gravitate toward playing defense?
I don't know. I think just like I said, from watching Brian Leetch, I think was the biggest thing, and I don't think playing forward ever was a there was ever an opportunity for me to do that, and I guess all the kids at that age want to score goals anyway, so you have to. I think I was probably the only kid that wanted to play defense and try to score from the back end as well. So just right away, I wanted to be a defenseman. They put me back there, and like I said, I always wanted to model my game after Brian Leetch.
So you found your place early on. I guess it was actually better for you. You know, we could go through everything after you were drafted, and I want to talk a little bit about it. But you know, hockey is one of those sports. I grew up, and my dad used to take me to the Spectrum and watch the Bobby Clarks and the Bernie Perrants play with the Flyers back then. But most people, I think, you know, get into hockey every 4 years during the Olympics, and they don't know a lot about the game itself. To the uninitiated, it's more than just people and 6 guys skating around looking for somebody who's open to pass it. There is a strategy toward the game itself, correct?
Definitely, yeah. There's different systems, and each team will play a different style. So, I mean, you have the Golden Knights now that are playing, you know, they're surprising everybody, but they play together as a team. So there's going to be individuals on a team, you know, and Alex Ovechkin and these guys who stand out, and, you know, people will see that. But within that, like I said, there's 5 guys plus the goalie on the ice. So everybody needs to be in sync and making sure you're playing the right way. And because at that level, you know, you might be the best player in the world, but if you don't play within your team system, it's going to be tough to be successful as a team.
What's a defenseman's first job? As you're back there, you're obviously trying to protect the guy with the pads on behind you. But there is more than just interrupting a rush down the ice, correct?
Yeah, it's a lot. Now, and I think the game's changed. You know, early when I first came into the league, it was more of you had to be big and tough and physical and, you know, slow the game down. And now with the new rules, it's so much skating. And I think the biggest thing now is being a two-way guy who can, you know, like I said, when the play does get stopped, getting that puck and moving it the other way. And I think you're seeing that in the playoffs now, and the way, you know, in the Olympics as well as that way, just kind of faster pace, and so you got to be able to skate as well.
So when the puck's coming your way or a play is being called on the other side, you're just trying to interrupt and then just send it anywhere going the other way. Somebody who's watching a hockey game? What does a good defenseman do? What can a fan see a good defenseman do?
I think it's reading the play, like you said. When the puck's in the other corner and you're kind of standing there, you want to make sure you find an open guy who's not going to be able to score on your goal, and at the same time you want to find an area for yourself that your teammate, if he does get the puck, he can give it to you and you start going the other way pretty quick. So it's that transition game that's, you know, like I said, it has become very popular, and you know, more of a puck control rather than just getting it and throwing it away like, you know, the older style was.
So you're either A, trying to stand in front of somebody and irritate the living daylights out of them, or B, try to move to a spot that you can just take off and not be interrupted going the other way. Yeah,
that combination is big.
How many times a game do you get in? And do you play just all out for a certain period of time? I know there are different lines and stuff like that, but again, to the people at home who may be just getting educated on this, how many times a game do you go in and out, and how long do you play for?
So just from statistics, you know, I think this past year you play 30 shifts as a defenseman, I would say, within the 60 minutes, and there's 6 of us that can play. You know, you go in and out, and you just, whenever you're tired, you change, and sometimes during the face-off, you know, the coach will make the decision to change you as well. So, so you play probably close to 20 to 24 minutes a night as a defenseman. You see some guys, you know, in the NHL that play 30, and it's just amazing to be able to play at that level. And those guys, I think, more importantly, have learned to I don't want to say control their energy, but they are obviously in physical great shape, but they pick their spots as to when they're going to go full, you know, all out, and that's a big part of it as well. It's just kind of that knowledge and when to jump into a play or when to just sit back and play defense and, you know, save your energy, I would say.
Do you then, if you're winded, I mean, you go up and back or whatever the case may be. If you're winded, do you initiate then going out?
Yeah, usually it's. It depends on what coach you play for. Some will depend on what type of shape you're in, but usually I would say you want to be around 40 seconds. So that I would say would be the max, because they have a lot of tests for that, and that they do in practice to make sure that if you want to go a little bit longer, they'll prove to you they're wrong, that 40 seconds is a long time. So a couple wind skates or whatever you want to call them. It proves you pretty quick that 40 seconds is a long time on the ice.
What's a practice like for a pro hockey player? I mean, I know basketball, you probably do suicides, at least the practices that I did. You do suicides, and baseball, you just run diamonds. But what's a hockey practice like?
It varies. I'd say you probably get a good 20, 25 minutes of just drills where it's high pace and you don't stop. There's nothing. You have a couple drills and that are drawn up on the board before, so and you just run right into it to kind of get your heart rate pumping pretty good, and then from there they kind of pull back for the next probably 35, 40 minutes of more systems. I would say you kind of make sure everything's dialed in, that everybody knows, like I said, we're all on the same page. Everybody's pulling on that same rope and going in the same direction. So that's an important part of it, and there's definitely focus on that.
Do you strategize against what the other team brings?
Yeah, a lot of it. I think more regular season, you focus on yourself, and then when it comes to game day, you'll do video and things of that sort to kind of individualize on them. And but come playoff time, all your practices are. I mean, there's not too many of them, but when you do practice, it's based around what other teams do and the other team you're playing and kind of what they want to do.
So say 13 likes to bring it down this way and cross this way. So you have that kind of idea going on.
Yeah, with video now and the way things are going, there's the detail that goes into it. Everything. If a guy, like I said, if he's come down on his offside and he wants to cut to the middle, and tendencies, they'll tell you goaltenders where they get scored. 45% of his goals were scored glove side, so it's broken down pretty good to the point where you know what to do.
So see, that would be amazing to me that that people can skate, because I can't, and I've admitted that to a lot of people. But you have an idea that you've got to keep all that into your head, but it would almost be just like anybody else in the newsroom here. We know what we have to do every day. It's just part of it's ingrained in you at this point, right?
Yeah, it's just subconscious. That's just kind of there to help you. Maybe you remember it, maybe you don't, but if there's something that they see a flaw, they're going to tell you, and hopefully you can use that to your advantage and score more goals or control the play.
Owen Sound Attack, Ontario Hockey League. What would that be equated to in, say, a baseball, or would that be like single A? That's where you end up playing professional first, right?
Yeah. So that's it's still considered junior, but like I said, you sacrifice your college eligibility because you make a couple bucks. That I was still calling my parents for money at that point.
But, I was going to say a couple is probably the relative term, right?
Yeah, so but you give up your eligibility, so it's one of those things that I guess you could, similar to single A, but you're younger, obviously. Like I said, I was 16 years old. I played till I was right into 20, I guess, was the oldest you can be. So, and it's a good level for you to develop, that you're playing against that, like you said, that group of kids that are your age and you're developing. Everybody gets drafted, to that team, and then from there it's whether or not you get drafted to the NHL or not.
Mm-hmm. You were there 04, 05, 05, 06 in the Ontario Hockey League, and then 06 you're drafted by the Rangers. Obviously, one of the highlights of your career up until that point. When you get drafted like that, what goes through your mind? I'm going to be with the Rangers in a year. I'm going to be with the Rangers in 2 years. Did they set a plan in place for you? How did that all break down?
Yeah, it was, like I said, when I first came into the league, it was tough. As a defenseman, it was more, the approach was, defensemen take longer to develop. It takes time.
And why is that?
Just to learn the game. It's a harder position to, physically and mentally, to, you got to be in the right spot. You got to, there's just more that goes into it than we call it. The forwards aren't very smart. So, and then the goalies aren't very smart either, because they're getting hit with the pucks all the time. So we say as defensemen, we're the smart guys, but it just takes time to kind of understand the game. And for me, I think you're at that age, you're young, you want to get there as fast as you can, and you just try to push it and push it and push it. And I think, for me, that's kind of why I wanted to get out of New York. It was tough because they had so many older guys on long-term contracts, and there really wasn't a spot for me to slide in anytime soon. And I think that kind of led to me moving down to Carolina, which ended up being a really good thing for me.
And when you played, when's the first time you got to the NHL? That was with the Rangers. You played some games with the Rangers, right?
2010. Yeah.
When you got to that level, were you like, whoa, this is a different game than I've ever played before?
Yeah, I think the first game, your adrenaline's going, you're excited. It's almost a blur, your first game. And then from there it settles in where you start to realize the mistakes can end up in the back of your net pretty quick, and you're playing with the best players in the world. And, that's where it kind of settles in. The first game, though, is you almost don't even remember it, to be honest with you.
I was going to say, do you remember that first one?
Yeah, I remember. There's moments that I remember on the ice, but as far as that, like the game, there's not really too much that you can kind of pull out of it. Like
the game is so fast-paced, and I still tell people who've never been to a hockey game, I think hockey is the best sport to watch in person. I think you can see plays develop. You can see people moving. You don't lose sight of things. It's all contained, as opposed to a football game where you can be at the 20 and then throwing a pass to the other 20. But when you're on the ice and you've got a guy who's, blazing fast, if you try to recognize, hey, they're gone.
Yeah.
You can't really do anything other than concentrate on the game, can you?
No, like you said, it happens so fast where, you look at a Connor McDavid, who's the top player in the league right now, I would say, with Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
They play the game so fast. And so if you do find yourself in between or you second guess your decision, it's not going to end well for you. So they're on a whole nother level with that. They see the game, probably better than anybody, and their decision making is, really quick.
And are they that much better than everybody else?
Yeah, it's like it goes back to, obviously, Connor McDavid's team didn't make the playoffs this year with Edmonton, so
right.
It goes to show that you have to have a team around you that plays the right way and does things. It's a culture that they build. But then you look at Pittsburgh, who won the last 2 years. They're doing something right, and Crosby's a big part of that, playing within that system.
07-08, your career high 70 points you had that year. Most goals by a defenseman. You were playing for Brampton, I guess, in the American Hockey League at that point.
Oh, that's the OHL as well. So I got traded that summer.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the same. I got traded over the summer, and just I went, and it's closer to Toronto, and I had new billets, and just had a really fun year. It was a good year to kind of. I was in between. I wasn't allowed to play in the AHL. You have to wait till you're eligible, I guess, technically. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't. It was just a year for me to I had to play another year somewhere, so I played in the OHL.
And obviously, by that point in time, you're gaining a whole lot of confidence in your own abilities.
Yeah, definitely. And I had a great coach there in Stan Butler who helped teach me a little bit more of the defensive game and allowed me to be offensive as well.
I talked to Connor Barth for one of my podcasts last year and asked him what it's like when you're cut, what it's like when you're traded. He told me one time when he was traded, he sat outside the team facility and just I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. It's happened to you a couple of times. Yeah. What do you remember about going through that? How much of a blow is it to your psyche, to your confidence?
It's a combination, I guess. I think it's probably a little different in football because most of the time you're in a pretty good situation, and there's not really a minors for football, I guess, in that sense. But with hockey, with New York, I asked for the trade, so I kind of knew it was coming, and so at that point, there's that excitement. It's a fresh start for you, and I think sometimes that's important for players mentally. And but there are moments where whether you want to re-sign and a team says, "Hey, we're going to go to a different direction," or you do it. It's hard on you, and it takes time to kind of understand what your next steps are, and that's where the stress comes into it with sports, and it's not all peachy for athletes. There's a lot that goes into, especially with families too, picking up and moving, and my family's done it for the last 8 years, so we're used to picking up and moving, and my wife's great with it.
Yeah, and it's but you've got to look at some other things. You guys just take a beating, so. There's the health insurance angle. There's, the house payments. You've got payments just like everybody else. You've got bills just like everybody else, and you have no idea what's coming next week when they say can you hand in your playbook in that way.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the hard part of it because, like you said, there's things don't go away like the bills and things of that sort. So. And it depends. On the situation. If you had a good season and you're a free agent, you're kind of looking forward to where you're going. And fortunate enough, I'm in that situation right now. I'm unrestricted and trying to figure out where I'm going to go. But so that side of
the
it's
ice
better.
House out there in Ogden.
Yeah, that's where I'll be training. So that's where it starts. But it's a whole different scenario. If you had a tough year and you're injured, or knock on wood, if something happens, you just never know. So it's something that you can't take for granted in your health, and we kind of make sure we do what we can in the off season to prepare our bodies for that.
But you did have a pretty serious injury once you were traded to Carolina.
Yeah.
Was that difficult mentally as well as physically?
I think so. I think especially with the start I had coming in, I pretty much made the team out of camp, going to the European Premier games, and just when I went down to the minors, it was one of those, keep your game sharp, and we're going to get you back up here. And 15 games in, I was in so much pain that I couldn't deal with it, and it just kind of popped up and needed surgery. And like I said, it's just all about timing. That's a lot of sports too. That's what people don't realize. It takes the right time, the right place, and the right situation to work out. And I mean, it could be something as small as somebody gets hurt and you step in and you have a 15-year career, or
Lou Gehrig. I mean, those stories are out there,
and it happens, and it goes both ways, and you just got to make the best of your situation.
Obviously, the Olympics this year gave you an opportunity to play for the United States, but you actually made the under-20 team.
Yeah.
So you played for the U.S. early in your career, obviously not to the level of the Olympics. Yeah. Did you sense, even at that age and at that time, a difference in playing and putting on red, white, and blue rather than putting on a team's uniform at the time?
Yeah, it's always an honor to represent your country at that, especially even at that level. Like I said, you're young, so you probably don't understand how important it is, but you're always excited. You're around your American friends who you've played with growing up, and to be able to throw that jersey on and pretty much go to battle every night with these guys, it's a great feeling. And those are the opportunities that, looking back, that you remember, in your career.
Even though you were younger than the Pyeongchang experience,
yeah.
And you had your wife and your child over there. I mean, that had to be just a different experience for Bobby the person, other than Bobby the player, in 2018.
Yeah, it was. I think it's what you said. Having my son there, and my wife, and my parents, is just and my sister as well. It's amazing to have that support, and because they're the people that get you there. I mean, we're the athletes that we go out and we perform, but there's so much more that goes into it. Whether it's taking care of the home side of things, which my wife does with my son, or my parents, their support in the summers, and my sister there just has always been there to support me, and that's the special part about it, and to be able to play for your country as well.
You played the Deutschland Cup. You were picked. The NHL had already said they weren't going to send the professional players over. So you're among the group that's asked to play in the Deutschland Cup. Were you told this is the tryout for the U.S. team? How did that all work?
We all understood that there was only going to be one tournament for Team USA. That they were going to pick from this, the European guys, and then they were going to add some college kids in for the tournament. So that was we knew that was kind of our one shot, and we had to perform well. And that pressure was tough, but we didn't perform as a team well. But like I said, individually, I was able to show enough to make the team.
When you got the call from Jim Johansson, take me, where were you? What was the phone call like, and what was your reaction immediately afterwards?
I actually missed the original call. I had a game that night, so it was my pregame nap, and my wife was out running some errands. So
you missed the call? Yeah. You were taking a nap?
Yeah, so I woke up probably about 20 minutes later, and I saw it was Jim that called, and because of the timing, it was one of those, like, this could be it. It was a little. They told us we'd know by January 1st, but this was probably first week of December, so something was going on, and I called him right back as soon as I saw him. I said, "Hey Jim, how's it going?" He goes, "Well, I'm glad you got back to me quick. I just want to tell you made the team, and we're really excited." And just, it's one of those calls that you just don't know what you say. Like, I was so excited, and I probably thanked him 30 times for selecting me. And from there, I called my wife and told her, I just talked to Jim Johansson, I made the team, and I said, "Come on back, we'll call everybody." So she came home, and we called our families and broke the news to them.
That had to be. I mean, you won the Swiss Cup. You obviously scored goals in the NHL, and you've done a lot of these things. Getting the call up until that point just had to be indescribable. Could you have thought when you started at the age of 7 that you would have had the chance to play in the Olympics?
No, I mean, it's something you dream about, obviously, as a kid, and you played in your head, the NHL, Olympics, and it's just, to be able to accomplish both those is really cool. And I know it was under different circumstances, but it's something I'll remember the rest of my life, and an experience that I'm glad that I was able to enjoy with my family.
Now, you went over there. You go over there to Pyeongchang with the team and everything else, and you sent video back, which was awesome. Yeah. And that was so cool that you were doing that and helping us. But can you put the words into walking into that stadium, walking through on the opening ceremonies? Is it just beyond any words to comprehend?
Yeah, it's. I mean, proud's obviously the first one. When you look up and you're surrounded by a bunch of American athletes that are at the top of their game, and you're all there under one flag, and it was a really cool experience, and it happens so fast when you walk out there. You just want to take it all in, and I was on my phone a little bit, but you try to take it all in at the time, and you have a moment where you're at the Olympics, and you just keep telling yourself that, and you're looking around, and it's just amazing.
What stood out? I mean, obviously there's flashes going everywhere. We saw the video. There's athletes everywhere. Was there something that just, wow, look at that over there? Or was it you're just taking it all in?
Watching it on TV is a different experience, I guess, than being there. For us, it was kind of weird because of the lighting, the way they had it set up with the seats. It almost looked like nobody was there. So we walked out and we're like, everybody's looking around, like, are people not there? But then as you were able to get by the sections, you could see the people behind the lights that were on the seats. So that was the one thing that we all looked for, like, well, nobody's really here. I know it's cold out right now, but no, but that's something that stood out. But other than that, it's just, like you said, being able to walk with your fellow American athletes was a really cool experience. And the Shaun Whites and Lindsey Vonns that are there, just it was cool to be around them.
And can you share any conversations, cool experiences you had? I mean, obviously, you're probably busy there and playing and everything, but you run into somebody. Did you run into Shaun White? Did you run into the Lindsey Vonns? Did you run into somebody that you always wanted to meet or really looked up to? Or
yeah, I think the opening ceremonies was time for us to kind of be around that. Like I said, Shaun White was there, so we got some pictures, and Lindsey Vonn, and the cool thing is they give you pins at the start of the Olympics that you're able to kind of trade it throughout the time. So I think there's one that I went up to. I was standing in line waiting for food, and I said, "Hey, do you have a pin?" And she gave it to me. I asked her, "So how's your competing going?" She goes, "Oh, I just won my gold medal yesterday." And it's like you're sitting there surrounded by these people that just they're winning medals, and obviously we only play for one, but they have multiple chances to win, and it's just cool to be around that atmosphere, I would say.
Yeah. When you look back at the experience, you scored a goal, you played in the Olympics. What do you take away from that? The family experience of having everybody there, your wife and Jackson being there. When somebody talks to you about it 20 years from now, what's the first thing you say?
I think that's a tough question. There's so much that goes into it. I think, like, for me personally, like you said, the family was the big one. To have that support is probably number one. And from the hockey side of it, though, just like I said, being able to throw that USA sweater on with your fellow Americans, just there's no better feeling, and the pride that you play for, and to be able to represent your country and have the support from the people back home. The messages that you get. I mean, even when we lost a couple games, people were there for us, and it's just amazing.
Did you save the puck that you scored the goal with?
No, so I only had an assist in the Olympics. I had a goal in the Deutschland Cup for the tryout.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't. So I didn't get the puck for the assist. But that's something I'll for sure remember. That was nice to get a point there and help out.
Yeah, you go down in the record books.
That's right. Yeah, something good.
I wanted to talk to you about your sister.
Okay.
She was there with you, and you said in an article that I read that she is one of your inspirations.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about Lauren.
So she, growing up, she was diagnosed with liver disease. So she's had, at this point, 3 liver transplants. So growing up, it was tough. It was tough to watch her go through it. And she's always been really strong. She's a lot stronger than me, and I'll try not to get choked up talking about it. But she's a really tough person and has been there for me when I needed her. And it's a lot to watch her go through that. So she's doing well now, and she's a nurse down in Florida. So she's doing really well, and it's something that kind of brings you down to earth. You realize hockey's a game, and life's more important.
But here you are, big, tough hockey player, defenseman hockey player, and I see in your eyes that I think you really believe that she is stronger than you are.
No, 100%. I mean, it's like I said, I've watched her, some of the pain that she's gone through, and I've blocked shots, I've whatever, and at the end of the day, it's not even close to that. So she's the tougher one, and she'll remind me of that sometimes too.
It's neat that you have that relationship with her.
Yeah.
and it's neat that she was able to be there. And you know, Mom and Dad, you know, they do a lot for us growing up. And, you know, was it neat to be able to have Mom and Dad over there with you as well?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that goes back to they're the ones that got me there. I mean, with her being sick, with my sister being sick, it was full team on board. My grandparents, you know, everybody was driving me to the rink, and that's the one thing I give my parents. You know, I try to tell them every time that thank you for making me, you know. I was showing up at every practice. It didn't matter if I was sick. It didn't matter if my sister was sick. They found the way to get me there, and ultimately what made me a better player. Just, you know, the commitment that goes into it every day. They're just, I mean, my dad's always been that way, and he instilled that in me by doing that.
Didn't your grandmother once pay you to take medicine?
That's how I started actually playing hockey. I was.
I read that story,
yeah.
and it made me chuckle. But she actually paid you to take medicine to get better, so you could go.
Yeah, it was my aunt's wedding. I don't know how might have been 5 at that point. So I was just skating, and I wanted to start playing hockey. And like I said, I was sick, so I had this bad tasting medicine. She was watching me. She goes, "You're not gonna be able to walk tomorrow." I was the ring bearer, so she said, "You're not gonna be able to walk tomorrow if you don't take the medicine." And I said, "I'm not taking it." She said, "Okay, I'll give you $100, but you got to put it towards your hockey equipment if you're gonna, you know, you got to take the medicine." So I took the medicine, and sure enough, the next day she took me, and I got my hockey equipment, and that's how I started playing.
That's I mean, that kind of a story is you tuck that in your shirt pocket and you carry that around. That's one of the best stories I've heard of somebody getting their start.
Yeah, no, it was. So I look back and I thank her as well for a lot of it, and she's been able to follow my career. And like I said, the support I have from my family and friends is it's amazing.
How did you discover Wilmington?
So we came down. I played the lockout year in Carolina, 2012-13. So after the season, we didn't want to go back up north, so we stayed in Raleigh for a little while, and we asked somebody at the closest beach, and they sent us down to Wrightsville Beach, and just fell in love. We were here for one day, and then from there the house hunt started, and we bought a house a couple months later. So it was just one of those things that I think everybody feels when they're here, the energy and the vibes, and it's just a positive place to be and to raise a family.
And now the Ice House has become like your hockey hangout here. Well, now you've got a son, so I mean you're going to be going to Chuck E. Cheese and some of these other places just like all the other dads. But it's neat that you have a facility like that here, because not a lot of beach towns have a quality place like that.
Yeah, no, it's really unique to have that situation. I mean, looking back, that wasn't even a thought. So to be able to find that and know that was right there was amazing. They do a really good job. They've always been great to me, and it's a great place to, you know, at all levels, learn to skate and people that want to play. And I think they're now trying to start up a couple women's teams that they're doing as well. Somebody reached out to me on Instagram. So there's a lot of positives that are coming out of there, and if there's anything I can do, I always try to help out as much as possible and to grow the game while I'm only here for a short period of time. But hopefully in the future I can help out more.
And why decide to go to Europe to play? When you decided you went, I guess the first play was the Continental League with a K,
Russia,
and you played over there in Russia, and then you won the Swiss Cup in 16-17. Why go over? Because it just keep you playing at that point?
It's just the combination. I think when you play in the minors for a few years where you're up and down, and it's tough on the family. So first it's kind of, you want to make sure you know where you're going to be for the whole season, and Russia was at that time the highest league to play in outside the NHL, so it was important for me to go there and play play hockey and play at a high level. I think was the main thing, and then I wanted to come back, so I came back the next year and played a couple more years up and down in the minors in the NHL, and then it kind of gets to the point where it's about quality of life, and Switzerland's a great place to live, and it's easier on the body. It's not as physical. It's a bigger ice rink, so it's a lot more wide open hockey with more time and not as physical, which is nice. So it kind of came down to that, and just it's a good way to make a living.
And did it take any convincing of Sarah to go overseas like that?
Yeah, the Russian one was the big one. That was I think a tough experience for us, but she's a trooper, and she packed up and came over for a couple months with me, and just kind of gave us the freedom to come back and play in the minors if we wanted to, and
How did you meet her, and did she know that the life of a hockey player when you guys met?
I tricked her into a date, I think, in Hartford. She was going to school there, and I was playing in the minors for the Rangers team, and just kind of went on a couple dates, and then I don't think she really knew too much that went into it, to be honest with you. She wasn't. She was a soccer player, Division I soccer player for herself, and so she was busy doing that, and got to a point where I was like, I kind of like this girl. I'll bring her along and see if I can trick her a little longer. And she came down to Charlotte with me when I was there the first year, up and down with Carolina. She was still going to school up there, so she was flying back and forth. We kind of, that was a big commitment. So I wasn't a great influence on her soccer career, and I'm lucky she's a really smart girl, so she was doing more than okay with school, so that was important.
And so obviously that's how she learned the life of the minors and the NHL and everything else like that.
Yeah.
So I read something that said, Sanguinetti is blessed with offensive gifts and knows when to jump into the play for an offensive chance. With outstanding skating and puck handling abilities, he's a dynamic force on the blue line with equal skill, moving both north and south and east and west. When people and bloggers and stuff like that write something about your abilities, as a professional athlete, what's that like?
You get both of it, that's for sure. I mean, with the media, it can go both ways. All it takes is one bad game, and you're the worst player on the
right.
ice. And but so when you see a lot of positive things, you try not to, you don't want to get too high and too low with it. So it's nice when people do write things like that. But for me, I think more importantly, it goes back to those days, like you said, where you're in the basement shooting balls against the wall and trying to stop it, and just the little things that you've done to get to where you are, and the skills that you've been able to master, I guess you'd say, for people to see that is really cool, and something I think you don't think about as a kid, that you're not worried about what somebody's going to write about you in the future,
right.
But to be able to show that that's what the hard work goes into, and people notice it is a really cool experience.
But that would be like somebody in the Star News writing, well, Evans screwed up Tess's lead in today, so they might want to put Bonner in replacement for him. It had to be difficult when somebody wrote that first tough piece on Bob Sanguinetti, and you weren't used to it. Do you remember some of that, maybe some of those early things, and you have to kind of learn to let it roll off your back? Yeah,
it was tough. I think especially in New York City, I was 18 years old, and draft day, people, I guess at that time, there was no Instagram or Twitter or anything like that, so it was a little bit more low key, but people are pretty quick to let you know how they feel about, a draft pick, or if you don't turn into a superstar within the first week, it's kind of like, what's this guy doing? And so I think it is tough. If there's any advice to fans, take it easy on some of these athletes. And I don't know, the older I get, though, my dad gives me a hard time about when I watch some sports. But no, it is. It's sports are a business of what can you do for me now? And
right.
So I think it takes some time when you do, as an athlete, you see that negative stuff, and you try to avoid as much as you can with the social media if things aren't going well. And at the same time, when it's a good piece, you don't want to get too high.
Sure. You mentioned earlier that you're a free agent. Post Olympics, a man that Danny O'Brien, who was you look up to a lot, was one of your mentors, one of your earlier coaches, said you're more like a 26-year-old than the 30-year-old because you played fewer games in Europe. Yeah. Obviously, that's got to be a compliment that he thinks that you're in the shape of a 26-year-old. No. Do you think NHL is a possibility moving forward, or do you like playing over in Switzerland? What do you think?
I don't know. It's tough. The minors is tough. It gets, you're on a bus a lot and you're traveling. If there's a depth job where it makes sense to, if I can help out in the NHL, I think that's the goal. It has to be the right situation. Now it's, like I said, it's about a family decision rather than, me personally chasing a dream. I've been able to fulfill some of my dreams, and obviously I'd like to play more NHL games and kind of get back to that. But at the same time, has to be work financially, and as well, for my family, it needs to be a comfortable situation. Mm-hmm.
And so you're just waiting to hear now. Imagine you have an agent.
Yeah.
You're just keeping in shape. What do you do now during this off season?
Yep. No, I took a couple weeks off to just kind of rest the body, and now I'm back in the gym and just wait for my agent. I have a North American agent and I have a European agent as well. So my European agent, things get done sooner over there. So they've kind of told me my options over there, and everybody kind of knows the situation. I'm just going to wait and see what happens, and if something happens over here, that would be great, and if not, then we'll go back over.
What do you do to kind of relax?
I'm a big golfer. I don't know if that's relaxing right now with the way I've been playing.
We'll have to get you out with Bonner and I one of these days.
We'll play. Yeah, when I first come back is when all my buddies try to get in my pocket. So they know I haven't played in 8 months, and they go for the easy win. But I play a lot of golf, and we have a boat as well that we got out on. So we've kind of embraced the full beach life here, and kind of just we try to rest as much as possible, physically and mentally.
Can you watch a hockey game and relax, or do you like, oh man, look, he made a mistake? Or I have difficulty when I go somewhere watching a newscast, because I look at how they deliver everything, and I say, I would have put a graphic or a map in there. I would have done it a little bit differently. Yeah. How do you watch a hockey game or a professional sport, being a professional athlete?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I try to. You turn the brain off to that stuff as much as possible. You're always going to watch, say, if I was in that situation, what would I do differently? Like you mentioned. But the game's so fun to watch now. The speed of it, and the teams that are in it. It's just it's enjoyable to watch. So we'll watch the playoff hockey, and we'll watch playoff basketball as well, and just kind of. I'm a big sports guy. My wife likes it as well, so it's good to kind of at night when we put the little guy down, and we'll just watch some sports.
How much did becoming a dad change Bobby?
A lot, I think. I think it's I might have been a little bit selfish before with my career. My wife's place had always been great for me, and taking care of the stuff that comes with it. But now it gets to a point where you worry about him, and it's about spending as much time with him, and it's no longer about you as an individual or as a couple. It's about making sure that he's always happy and he's always got everything he needs, and that's an important part of it. And
would you, and this is a difficult question, would you rather he be raised in the United States than living over in Switzerland?
I think that's part of the coming back. The draw to that is having family close by, and it's definitely a cool experience. I mean, he's been to 9 countries since I think he was 6 months old. So that's something he'll be able to tell his buddies early on. But I think it is important to have people around you that are able to help firsthand, and at the same time this is home for us, and we're over there for a longer period of time. But like I said, when we come back, this is what where we put our roots down, and this is where we want to be.
There is this podcast will go out. It'll be an audio podcast first, but there will be a video version of this that goes out. So I'm going to punch up. I've got you on the solo camera, and when people see this, I want them to see your expression when you look at that. What he's looking at is the Bobby Sanguinetti hockey card from, I guess this was in 2006, your very first one. Look at that! There. Look at that young guy.
It's a young baby there, still learning the ways. No,
is that kind of the cool thing to have your own? I mean, you were how old there? What,
so
16?
I was there 16, yeah.
And you had your own hockey card at that point in time?
No, it's and that's I think you just when you're in that lifestyle, you just everything happens so fast. So you go one thing after another. Just then the next thing you're getting paid to sign the card, and it just kind of it's crazy. I look at it and I can't believe that was that long ago. But now I look at that picture and that's a young boy there. That,
look at that guy.
He had a lot of learning to do there.
Look at that guy. Okay, we've got this is a trading card database.
Okay.
This is another one here. There's another one.
So that was the draft year.
Yeah.
We played in like a Team Orr and Team Don Cherry game. I guess the two coaches they take all the top prospects from junior that they put together, and that was that game. So that was my draft year. I would have been 17 there.
Yeah, I never went. I was just doing research for the interview, and I saw some of these. But here's another one.
So that's my first year pro.
Yeah, this is another one right here.
Yeah.
There's another one right here.
Still young.
Still young there. You still don't have the wild hair that you have now.
No.
But Bob Sanguinetti at this point. You didn't even go Bobby.
I should have addressed that earlier, but I always said Bob's my dad, so because he's Robert as well, so he was always Bob and I was Bobby. And
do you get any say at all what they put on these things?
Not when you're a rookie and you're 19 years old. I wasn't arguing anybody on that, so that they put that on, but now I address that it's Bobby.
Do you?
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's one. This This is the one with the Rangers.
Yeah, it's my first year.
Yeah.
I was 21 there, I guess. So.
And that's a cool picture right there.
Yeah, there's that's the nice part about it. You're able to see your playing cards, and you're able to see pictures from. I guess I'm 10 years pro now, from your first year to like I said, in the Olympics, things of that. So it's just cool to kind of put it all together and just see the development of you as a person, as a player.
Yeah, I mean, there's not like a playing cards for news anchors, and if there were, mine would be.
You might need to start that, huh?
mine would be in some kid's bicycle. Like, remember when we used to do that as a kid growing up? You'd put the playing cards in the bike, and it would make the bike make noise. It was like getting a muffler for your bicycle at the time. And here's an upper deck one, and this had you as Bobby.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the upper deck. Upper deck came in and kind of took it to the next level as far as playing cards are concerned.
So I was 22 there, and you fly up to Toronto, and they do a whole little photo shoot with you and with all the other top players. So it was a cool experience.
Is there one card that you like above the rest?
I don't know. Like it's kind of funny. You see new ones all the time that you.
There's another rookie card here with the Rangers. Oh, there you're trying to look tough there.
Yeah, well, that's hard to do. But they always say, "Give me your means face," and okay. No, but it's you see a lot of different cards, like I said, which is pretty cool. From when you're 16,
Champs rookie card, yeah,
16 to now, I'm 30 years old, and you see them pop up everywhere, so it's pretty cool.
You're trying to be mean, like, don't bring that puck back where I am. You'll pay for it, kind of face.
Exactly. Good thing I have a stick in my hand. I'm not big enough to scare anybody.
Some of these, this is fun for me. I mean, upper deck. Some of these other ones, I'm trying to go through here. There was a couple more. I've got to get to the next one. But this is, I mean, obviously not everybody has the ability to be able to go through their cards. Here's one, even when your Carolina card, but they had you in a Rangers.
Yeah, that's upper deck at that point. I guess I didn't go up for another photo shoot, so they just used that picture. But
yeah, you think they would have kind of photoshopped like the Carolina.
I think that was
thing
right after I got traded. They used that and they put that one out.
Not even anything back here.
Yeah,
I mean, not even anything
from
there
Carolina
at all. And let's go to, I think some of your other ones are here. I think I have to get on here. But, I mean, this is kind of cool that you'll be able to look at this, too.
Here's one,
Yeah, Cage. I don't know if that one's going to come up or not. Do they have them overseas, too?
Yeah, they usually do them for, at least in Russia they did. Switzerland, they're not, they don't do trading cards. People like to buy jerseys there, so they'll have you sign a bunch of jerseys, and they sell those. So that's a little bit different, but it's been a fun ride so far to be able to see the different places and different age pictures of me.
Yeah, that was kind of like.
I'm getting old though. That's the only thing I don't like. And I had a conversation with my agent about being 30 and old. I said, "What do you mean I'm old at 30?" I said, "When I first came in the league, you had to be 30 to play. Now it's like I said, the 20, 21-year-old kids playing is the way it goes now." And they're just really fast skaters, and they're smart, and they're really talented. So it's fun to watch.
Yeah, but you're a dad.
I'm a dad. Hey, the dad strength in the corner is what I'm going with. See if that helps. But
you're married. You got a great life here at the beach. You got I guess he's now 6 months old now, 8 months.
So he just turned 9 months actually.
Yeah, so 8 or 9 months now. So I mean, you're a dad. You've had 10 years in the league, and let those 20 and 21-year-olds do what they want to do. You're now Dad Bobby Sanguinetti. You're in Wilmington, and you're a U.S. Olympic hockey player.
That's right. It's an awesome thing to hear.
Yeah, Bobby, thanks again.
I appreciate it, John. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate everything you've done, and we hope that you're a part of this community for a long, long time. And anything we can do to help you out, let us know, okay?
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having me, John.
Thanks to Bobby Sanguinetti for coming in for this week's podcast interview. You can find him either at the Wilmington Ice House, sharpening those hockey skills, or at the golf course, trying to lower his handicap as he waits to see what develops for the upcoming season, whether he plays in the NHL or in a league around the world. Next week, the preeminent researcher of Wilmington's World War II history joins us. That's Wilbur Jones. And he shares some of the stories that he uncovered during his research, some of the things we know happened during World War II, and maybe some of the things we didn't.
The fact, and I consider it a fact, that a German U-boat did fire on the Etheldow chemical plant at Curie Beach in 1943. And yes, we did have saboteurs who came ashore, and I've talked to eyewitnesses, and it's in my books. And of course, that didn't appear until after the war, because we didn't know about that. I mean, the government didn't tell us all of what was going on, all the ships being sunk off North Carolina coast.
And nobody tweeted it out or put it on Facebook or had pictures of it.
Thank goodness.
That's Wilmington's preeminent World War II researcher, Wilbur Jones, next week right here on the podcast. If you know someone who you think would be a good interview for an upcoming episode, please let me know about it. Just send me an email, jevans@wect.com. And I'm asking you to please subscribe to the podcast too, whether you listen on iTunes or Google Play or SoundCloud or iHeartRadio, because the more subscribers we have, the higher we get listed in recommendations. So that'll really help our efforts. And what did you think of this week's podcast or any of the other ones that you've listened to? Leave me a rating or a review. And if you send me a screenshot of what you thought, you could be the lucky listener we pick out at random. And we'll send you one of those great-looking WECT travel mugs. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of One on One.